Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to the Rehearsal Recap Podcast, where I take a deep dive into each episode of Nathan Fielder's hit show. Join me as I break down the moments that make us laugh, cry, and shake our heads in disbelief. In this episode, season 1, episode 5, Apocalypto, originally aired August 12th, 2022. In this episode, it's all about Nathan and Angela. There's no other rehearsals going on. There is a battle between Christianity and Judaism. There is a battle between Christmas and Hanukkah. Nathan has showing his inability to stand up for himself and stand up for his beliefs. There's also some fake winter wonderland, a fake winter wonderland, and also a fake bar, a real bar, I should say, actually. A fake bar becoming a real bar. But in this episode, it starts with Nathan playing with Adam. They're playing Dr. Adams, the Dr. Farts, and makes fart noises with his face. He's doing a medical examination of Nathan and a lot of fart jokes. And poo becomes medicine, and they show Nathan, in order to cure his incurable disease, he must eat poo, which is being portrayed as a candy bar. So he eats the candy bar, and then cut to Nathan, Angela, and the kid all watching this video that they created of Dr. Farts. And of course, Angela is completely disgusted by the whole thing, not appreciating the comedy or the fart jokes or the eating of the candy bar poo by Nathan. And we also find out no other rehearsals. Adam wants to just focus. Since Adam returned to 6 years old, Nathan wants to just focus on all of his energy on the duties as a father. He wants to take them seriously. And both, he knows that both himself and Angela need to take this seriously, like to be fully committed to the rehearsal for it to work. So we see Adam reading a Christian book with Angela as she, obviously her steadfast devotion to everything Christianity and her desire to homeschool their kid in a Christian-based homeschooling, basically grooming. The thing that they all are scared of that's happening at drag shows happens every day all across the country in Christian households, where parents brainwash their kids into believing their version of a rebooted religion. And Nathan's open to doing that her way, despite him being raised Jewish. But of course, as we've seen in previous episodes, where Angela's basically the boss telling Nathan to go plant the fields and go harvest the eggs and do all the things, like she is the boss dictating the jobs to Nathan. Still kind of that same dynamic in a lot of ways. Then we have Adam as 3, so we kind of go back in time. Adam, at the beginning of this episode, he's now 6 years old. As we left the last episode, we had I don't know how old he was, 15-year-old Adam slide down a slide, and 6-year-old Adam came out because Nathan wanted to rewind time, wanted to, rehearse raising a kid and not have to go through the reality of what it would be like for Nathan to be gone for 9 years. So we go back in time to even before LA, before Adam gets to even that age. He is back at age 3. So that giving you kind of some aspect of how long ago his parents, Nathan's parents, actually came to visit, because Adam is 3 years old. And also kind of shows how they construct these episodes. Obviously, the writers of this show and a reality TV show where there's tons of footage. Obviously, they're able to construct a narrative for each episode. We'll pull from moments of different aspects of the show, no matter how far back it needs to go, in order to tell a compelling through line. And the through line is this: when the parents come and they have a picnic and they see Angela, and Angela, of course, is saying the things that she says. And of course, Nathan's parents, both Jewish, he was raised Jewish, he's telling them that, yeah, we're going to be raising this kid together. And of course, Nathan's like, well, she's kind of taking the lead on this, and I'm just kind of allowing it to happen. And we find out that this is a common occurrence in Nathan's relationships, in his past relationships, where he becomes very submissive and allows his partner to kind of dictate and steamroll all over him, and his parents are kind of telling him to stand up for himself and be more assertive, and do what you need to do to introduce this religion that you grew up participating in, introduce this these traditions and these faiths to this fake kid, right? So clearly going back to that moment where his parents came to illustrate a lot of what this episode is about. Nathan struggling with standing up to Angela when it comes to being more open about what they teach this kid that they're co-parenting, right? So, and for Nathan, it's always just easier for him to go along with things instead of, dealing with the tension. So similar to his past relationships, just letting his partner dictate every move in order to avoid conflict. I mean, this whole show, in many ways, is Nathan rehearsing situations to minimize conflict. But Nathan's hoping that this is an opportunity for him to change these habits. His idea is to wait for winter, quote unquote. It will be easier for him to ease into introducing these ideas to Angela in his mind if he waits for winter, quote unquote winter. But for me, like, if you have, knowing Angela and her like blind and like deluded her worship of her faith, and not being at all willing to compromise in any way, shape, or form for the way she defines her faith. Christmas is the worst time to bring that up. It is like the main holiday for Christians. It is so important that they feel like there's a war on Christmas, despite the reality that Christmas starts earlier and earlier every year. You see Christmas decorations and Christmas seasonal items in stores showing up earlier and earlier every year. You go anywhere in America and there's Christmas songs playing, there's Christmas decorations everywhere. The idea that Christmas is somehow in jeopardy of being taken away, this holiday, which I feel is far more of a capitalist holiday than it is a Christian holiday. It is a holiday where Americans celebrate the items that were purchased on Black Friday. That is, they celebrate these things that they purchased, these purchases that they made. That's pretty much the core of Christmas in a lot of ways, in my view. It's not really Jesus's birthday, which it wasn't. It was a pagan holiday that Christians just rebranded for their own benefit because it was already there. Like everything else in Christianity, all of their holidays existed before their bullshit in pagan religions, and were just repurposed for their own benefit. But of course, in my mind, Christmas would be the worst time to introduce the idea of, hey, we should introduce a religion that you don't like, of people you don't like because you think the Jews killed Jesus. It just doesn't make any sense. But that's his idea. Nathan, I'm going to wait for quote-unquote winter, which of course it's a fake winter. Because, you know, that's the show. Everything's fake. And it's very expensive. He's like, I need to do this fast because it's very expensive to make a fake winter in rural Oregon. And you see the property. You see, like, the production designers of the show, you know, that you like, there's this big aerial view of the house where it's just like the house is covered with quote-unquote snow. Windows, there's like snow, fake frost on it. The cars have fake snow on them. And just kind of the property line is where the snow ends. It's like I mean, it fits with the craziness of all of these sets that are constructed in this show, but kind of a crazy thing to see how that house is just outlined in snow. And of course, Nathan, because this is going to be a stressful confrontation, where he's going to have to talk to Angela, who is there. He is the director. He is the guy who dictates everything. But for whatever reason, Angela is the boss of this house. So Nathan is rehearsing with an actor that is portraying Angela, which of course the actor does a great job at portraying Angela, in order for him to bring up the subject of Hanukkah and, like, potentially, hey, let's teach this fake kid that's an actor, let's pretend that we're going to teach him both religions. And he knows this is going to be a difficult thing to bring up to Angela, so of course he's rehearsing this with another actor he built an exact replica of their house in this warehouse, where I assume this same warehouse where the bar is, which we see later in this episode. Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about Attention all Ray Taylor Show fans! We're excited to announce we've just released a line of exclusive merchandise featuring original artwork inspired by the show. Our high-quality shirts and biodegradable phone cases are a perfect way to show your support for the show and make a great gift for any fan. Plus, with each purchase, you'll be helping us continue to bring you great content. So don't wait. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com now and check out the full collection. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll show your support by grabbing some Ray Taylor Show merchandise today. And now, let's get back to the show. And for the first time, I would say that Angela has been deceived, right? Angela has always known, unlike the other rehearsals, Angela has always known who is an actor, who's real, right? Up until this point, where the actress that Nathan is using to rehearse this confrontation shows up as a nanny, a potential nanny. And while this potential nanny is there, she's getting information on Angela, asking Angela questions. And she gets asked if she feels that this experience has been healthy for her, and Angela takes this long pause, which is clearly she's clearly not invested in this entire thing. It is for her, it's like playtime. It's a vacation. I'm sure they're getting paid, right? These people that are participating in this. So she's like, yeah, I don't care. Let's do this. I'll pretend to live in this house and make whatever money they're paying her, right? So the only time that Angela's been deceived, as far as we know in this show, where this actress is getting intel, right? She's doing the Fielder method in some ways, getting information from Angela. In an interesting response, not surprising that she may not feel this is the healthiest way. I can't imagine anybody knowing the reality of the show being asked if this is a healthy way to handle these issues, if they would necessarily agree with that or not. But, you know, despite it being this make-believe thing, she is obsessed with Christianity and is not willing to compromise whatsoever, right? That is not something she's willing to pretend. She's not willing to pretend to raise this kid in a two-religion household, right? But I think the actress playing her does a really good job, surprisingly, right? And you see there's Nathan and her sitting down for a meal or whatever, and Angela's talking about, in fragrances, there's actually hundreds of chemicals, forever chemicals, right? That part of the conspiracy theory propaganda nature of Angela, right? Thinking that Halloween is where Satan worshipers do the rituals, clearly living in a different reality than most people because she gets her information from certain sources that confirm her biases of things, and part of that is like the idea that everything is toxic and done by the devil to control people. These people that think that all food is poisonous unless it's like grown or in a specific way or whatever, like this idea that all food is toxic. Not that processed food is healthy, but it's not like the extent they go to, which is the same people that during the pandemic, they're like the essential oils people. They don't believe in vaccines. Like, I'm sure Angela during the pandemic thought that the vaccine had microchips in it and that would connect you to the 5G networks and that they were control your brain. I'm sure all of those things are on her checklists of beliefs in addition to Christianity. And Nathan starts to bring up the subject of, during the same conversation, of teaching Adam Judaism. And of course, immediately she's anti. Obviously, Nathan, I'm sure, even knew that, but just the type of person she is and her beliefs that we've seen her communicate throughout the show so far, it would have been the most unbelievable thing if she was just all of a sudden chill with Adam learning Judaism. And of course, he immediately changes the subject to favorite movies. And that's where our title of this episode comes from, because one of her favorite movies is Apocalypto, because she loves Mel Gibson movies. Obviously, the guy who made the torture porn film that all Christians love, the one where they get to see their savior being brutally tortured throughout this movie that has a very thin plot where you really have to know the story of Jesus before going in to see Passion of the Christ, because the majority of that film is just torture porn. So, of course, one of her favorite directors is Mel Gibson, and of course has no problem with the anti-Semitic remarks that Mel Gibson has had. And Nathan obviously bringing up, like, well, he didn't really say very nice things about Jewish people. But, she doesn't really care. They end up, there's another scene where they're talking about the Dr. Fart video. And he's like, he was riffing and I was just going along with it. Don't you know sketch comedy? She's like, yeah, I know sketch comedy. I watch Key and Peele. I know comedy. And it's like the only time it seems that Nathan is willing to stand up for a thing is when it has to do with comedy. It seems like the only time where he's actually unwilling to relent is in talking about this, him playing with the kid. He's improvising with the kid, going along with it, escalating the stakes, making it ridiculous. That's mining the comedy out of this ridiculous thing. And, of course, eating poop would be the ultimate, the pinnacle of mining that ridiculous idea. But, ridiculous ideas are tricky because she believes so much of her faith is based on ridiculous ideas. So in an effort to teach this actor kid who's pretending to be their kid, Adam, in order to teach him Judaism, he decides to be dishonest with Angela and to say he's taking him to swim lessons while secretly he's taking him to a tutor to learn about Judaism. Or actually, he takes him to a synagogue at first, and the kid's asking all kinds of questions that Nathan isn't necessarily prepared to answer because he's not like, he's Jewish, but he's not hardcore, right? Unlike Angela, who is hardcore in a very specific version of Christianity, Nathan just kind of is more casually grew up in Judaism and doesn't know all of the finer details. So he ends up getting Adam a tutor, right? Because he's like, well, this is what I would do if my kid was really asking me all these questions. I didn't have the answers. Yeah, I'll get a tutor, right? I'll get somebody who actually knows. And then when he gets back, like on the way back, he's like, we got to make up this story, right? Everything with Nathan is lies, deception, manipulation, all because he's unwilling to do the one thing, right? Instead of doing the one confrontation thing, just telling her, standing up, it's like, listen, I'm doing this, right? I'm going to take this kid to go learn about Judaism, right? Because it's something that I grew up with. It is part of who I am. And for this rehearsal, it is important to me and maybe might benefit you to understand what compromise is. But instead of doing that and having that one confrontation, he's going to do a pile of things nefariously in order to circumvent that, right? He will work 10 times harder in order to sneak around and manipulate a situation just so he can avoid that one confrontation. It's like painful to watch, and it's sad because like I know friends that are like this, that they instead of, whether it's in a relationship or whatever, they, instead of just confronting the person, being brutally honest with the person, they will go jump through all of these hoops in order to somehow justify their conclusions without just coming out and saying it, right? It's painful. It's painful to watch people avoid being truthful and honest because it's difficult, and instead doing this roundabout thing which ends up taking longer, which ends up being more deceitful and more dishonest. And it's just, and that's just the type of person Nathan is. I mean, that's kind of what the show is in a lot of ways. So he's rehearsing this story with Adam that, like, oh, here's the details of what swim practice was like. They stop by a convenience store and he gets bottled water. He's like, oh, we need to make it look like you were swimming. So we'll get you get your hair wet, get your clothes wet, we'll get the towel wet, right? And then we have this story. And of course, when they get home, it's like clear that he's lying, because the kid's like, yeah, and the swim coach, his name is Bob, and he was wearing blue trunks, and then there was this other person. He's like going into all of the details, like all the telltale signs that you're lying when you're just elaborating on all of the details that nobody would elaborate on if it was a true story, right? And I'm sure Angela noticed that, but at the same time doesn't care. She's like, well, this is all fake anyway. I don't really care about this thing. I'm not really in it to experience what it'd be like raising a kid. I'm just kind of pacifying. She's almost an actor in this whole thing, except for the fact that she's not willing to compromise on this religion thing. But Nathan feels like there's finally harmony at home, right? As he's sneaking away, right? They're both getting what they want, right? Raising this child, Nathan says, right? But it's all done in secret. You see him sneaking around, manipulation, fabricating excuses, right? Oh, we're gonna go feed the chickens or whatever, and then they sneak into the basement so he can teach Adam, like, read him a book. It is just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, right? You're doing these things, you're doing so much work to pretend everything is okay in a pretend reality. So anyway, they're at the tutor. One of the times at the tutor, he asks, instead of stopping by at the convenience store every time, he's like, can we use the shower or can we use the bathroom? And the kid takes a shower. When they come out, the tutor's like, Miriam is like, what were you doing in there? And the kid's like, telling a story, because that's, that's the MO of Nathan. And this kid is just going along. It's like, oh, well, let's just make an excuse for, I was standing by the shower and I slipped in and the water turned on. And then Nathan has to explain the reality of the situation because it looks weird. Why would he be going to give this kid a shower while he's at this tutor's house? Like, what's the deal? So he's like, well, so the person I'm co-parenting this kid with, that's not, I don't even know if Miriam knows it's an actor. I'm sure she does. She doesn't want to teach him Judaism. She's Christian. And so it's like this situation that would have not been as awkward as it ends up being. But because Nathan is constantly going around, manipulating, so sneaking around, having to like kind of explain the situation is far more ridiculous and far more awkward than if he had just stood up to Angela in the first place. But it's funny to watch him have to explain it to this tutor, right? And of course, the tutor had noticed some of the questions that Adam would ask, like, did the Jews kill Jesus, right? Because that's what he's being groomed by Angela to believe. And she's talking about how, there's a history of Christians trying to kill the Jews because of these things, because their beliefs, because of these stories that they've been told, right? Historically, right? Ever heard of World War II? Ever heard of Hitler, right? Ever heard of 2023 Republican Party, right? Actual politicians saying that Jewish space lasers exist and are to blame for whatever these insane people that are in government say. So she says, the tutor's like, okay, I'm going to go with you to talk to her, right? And on the drive there, Nathan's like, oh, you want to rehearse what you're going to talk? And of course, like, finally, the one person in this entire show that I align with, she's like, no, I prefer to shoot from the hip, right? She's comfortable with what she knows. She's probably not the first time she's had to talk to a Christian. Probably not. She's educated about her side of things, and she's not worried about it, right? She's comfortable and has faith in her abilities to handle a situation without having to pretend to know and suss out all of the different aspects that could potentially happen. Right, the complete opposite of everything this show is about. You see in this tutor, and then she goes, talks to Angela, and immediately realizes that there's zero getting through to Angela, like zero, and she's not going to put up with Angela's bullshit, right? Which is, and you hear Nathan like kind of cheering on the tutor, right? Because he's like, yeah, that's what she said. And then Angela brings up things which I actually agree with, that Nathan, I mean, she says Nathan's always starting fights, which I don't know about that necessarily, but definitely somebody who manipulates people, lies about everything. Those are right on the button as far as Angela's critiques of Nathan. 100%. I mean, the entire show is Nathan manipulating and lying to people. And Angela, well, aside from this episode, is the only person that hasn't been manipulated, but already you have the fake nanny manipulation, and then you have Nathan and Adam lying to her to teach the kid things. So, you definitely get to see some honest critiques from Angela, which I appreciated, but also this thing that she's not willing to compromise in any way for this fabricated reality that they're doing, this rehearsal, is just ridiculous as well. But yeah, the tutor's like, nah, I'm tired of this, right? She knew right away that there was going to be no budge, that it was going to be a waste of her time to try and speak to somebody who is just unwilling to see anything outside of what her beliefs are. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to promote Are you looking for a way to take your love of The Ray Taylor Show to the next level? Look no further than Inspired Disorder Plus. As a member, you'll get access to a whole host of amazing perks, including the full week of shows, ad-free in both audio and video versions, a live painting archive, early access to the many faces, members-only discounts and deals, a podcast back catalog with over 600 episodes. But that's not all. As a member, you'll get access to my personal blog as well as my creative writing. You'll also get the chance to ask me anything you want. With all of these benefits and more, Inspired Disorder Plus is a must-have for any fan of The Ray Taylor Show. So don't wait. Go sign up now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and start enjoying all of the amazing perks of the membership. And now, let's get back to the show. So then we see that Nathan actually, in a way, to get away from the situation, not wanting to be home, not wanting to deal with Angela, to avoid this situation, he decides to turn that replica bar that is in the warehouse into a real bar, a temporary bar or whatever. And he's like, it's really cool to own your own bar while HBO pays for it. He names it Nate's Lizard Lounge, and he built like this wooden hallway from the outside door into the main door of this, like, and nobody knows that it's just like this fake. Nobody who's inside this bar knows what it looks like from the outside. They don't realize that they're in a replica bar inside of a warehouse. But also he used it as an opportunity to employ some of the actors, right? The students that he had. And then cuts to another conversation with Angela and Nathan where she's like, you ate the child's feces, you know? And she's like, that's part of satanic rituals, of course. And Nathan's like, well, why don't you just make me a list of all of the things that are part of satanic rituals, because I don't know, like, I'm going to come home from the store with oranges and you're going to tell me that's part of Satanism, you know? Kind of, you see moments where he's like kind of tired of her shtick, tired of this, her own delusional reality. You have people that are so desperate to live in these delusional realities, whether it's Angela and her religious beliefs or Nathan and everything that this show is, how neither of them finally kind of coming to a head in a lot of ways. So Nathan decides to review the footage to see what Angela is doing when he's gone. And you see that she's not doing anything. She's having normal conversations with the actors, right? She is not in any way part of this simulation, not in any way trying to rehearse. The no homeschool lessons. She's not doing any of the gardening. She's not fulfilling any of her fake Etsy orders for her fake business. Like, she's just hanging out with these actors. She's not raising Adam. She's hanging out with the actors that play Adam, right? Which is not at all surprising whatsoever. And Nathan obviously questioning what she's even doing here. If she's not even going to participate in this thing, then what is she even doing here? I assume she's getting a check. I assume being on this show, especially being in almost every episode of this show, right, aside from the first one, she is getting a check of some sort, right? In addition to being able to just hang out in this house and kind of have these weird things going on around her with this simulation that Nathan's obsessed with, that's kind of her focus. And then anytime it gets too real where it's at all in any way confronting her actual beliefs, she's like, I'm done with that, right? So then you see Nathan rehearsing again, confronting her about her not doing anything, not being engaged in the rehearsal. And you see them rehearsing fights. Like, this actress is amazing who's playing Angela. Like, definitely she knows all of the things that Angela would say, just based on what Angela has said already, knowing the things that Nathan does, like lying about and is kind of just how he is with everything. But seeing them rehearse the fight was pretty good, right? There's the line where it's like, do you want to feel something? Do you want to feel something real? And he's like, yeah. He's like, that's sad. You never will. No matter how hard you try, you never will. And then it's like, Nathan's like, okay, that was good. Can we try a nicer take this time? Right? Like, it's obviously he's trying to rehearse all of the arguments he thinks he's going to be having with this woman that he thinks is going to be arguing with him as if she's his spouse. Because we see when Nathan finally does confront her, Angela, right? Nathan's still connected to the fantasy, and Angela's like, oh, okay. I guess, like, she's found out. She's like, okay, well then then I'm done. We'll just end this then. We'll have some closure to this whole rehearsal thing, right? No arguments, right? She knows this whole thing was bullshit. She wasn't invested in this in any way. All of the rehearsing Nathan did for these arguments that he thought she was going to have, like, she's not even invested in it enough to have arguments with him, right? Like, Nathan's perception and assumptions of how things were going to go are so off that he didn't realize that she didn't need much to just say, oh, okay, peace. Like, oh, you're not happy with what I'm doing here. I don't really know what I'm doing here. She's basically an actor in Nathan's rehearsal, and Nathan's trying to manipulate the way she's acting. Like, it's insane. It's insane. So she's like, okay, I'm done, right? She's like, I've been blessed to be chosen for this. My bank account thanks you, I'm sure. And she compliments, the work and the detail, that everything that went into everything. Obviously, it is an interesting spectacle. She is going to have an interesting story to tell people, depending on what NDAs she signed to be on the show. It's an interesting, unique experience, I'm sure. And for people that align with her beliefs, I'm sure celebrate the way she handled herself. And for everybody that isn't really surprised at how she handled herself, because it seems to be, especially after the past few years we've gone through in this country, it's not surprising at all that, she would be so steadfast with all those things. So she packs up her stuff and she leaves. And Nathan still wants to do it, right? He's like, I'm going to keep doing this thing. Obviously, it's kind of been about him since he joined that rehearsal. It's been more about him than about her. Clearly, she's been checked out. And he tells Adam, Mommy left, right? And they start packing up all the Christmas decorations and putting up all the Hanukkah decorations, and he feels, oh, now I'm going to be standing up for my own values, which is like, you aren't. You never did. You tried to confront her about her involvement and her lack of involvement, or her lack of, trying to be part of this thing, and she pieced out right away. He didn't in any way stand up for anything. He did the complete opposite of standing up for all of that stuff by sneaking around. But he feels like, oh, now I can stand up for my values, right? So anyway, he gets the house all decorated with Hanukkah stuff. The tutor comes over. He invites her over, and he tells her that Angela left. And she's stoked. She's like, yay, she left. Good. We can make another Jew. And I don't know what her knowledge is of the show, if she knows that this is a rehearsal. Obviously, when she shows up and she sees the fake snow and all that, I would imagine she knows some of it, but you never know. The amount of manipulation and deception that's gone on in the show, who knows how much, like, if this woman knows that Adam is just an actor, I would assume she's seen different kids. It hasn't been the same kid every time, but either way, she's excited as if it is Nathan, a single father whose wife left, and now he's raising the kid on his own. It's kind of how she acts to it. And we see again as the tutor bringing up the Israel-Palestine conflict, how Nathan again is unwilling to have an opinion on that. He's like, well, that's kind of a hot button issue. She's like, well, you have a platform. You need to have an opinion. You need to talk about this because you have a platform. And in many ways, you kind of see how this tutor is like almost very different version, but similarities to Angela in her devotion for her beliefs and to push a narrative and to, control the situation in her the narrative she wants to push. And again, we see Nathan not willing to stand up. Like, you see what Angela was doing to Nathan and seeing how Angela controlled Nathan. We're seeing the same type of a dynamic with this tutor and Nathan, where Nathan's just like kind of like, oh, I don't know, and then changes the subject when it gets too much for him to talk about the donuts that they're eating. So, Nathan feels like he stood up for something, but nothing was gained from this. Nothing at all was gained. It just played out how it played out, and Nathan has this false confidence that him sneaking around, manipulating and rehearsing, and his process is what was the catalyst for all that. But yeah, it's that's the end of the episode for sure. But in this episode we saw him again using rehearsals and lies to avoid the truth, to avoid the confrontation, not standing up for himself despite being surrounded by people that do stand up for their beliefs, like Angela and Miriam. Despite having different beliefs, both know how to stand up for what they believe in, and both were easily steamrolled over Nathan. And despite disagreeing with Angela's points of views, I do agree with a lot of the criticisms that she had. The actress who played her, it just showed a lot of that even in the rehearsals, like really highlighting the real issues that Nathan has that he's just kind of avoiding and instead lying and manipulating. And we get further. Like, we always knew that Angela was not really in on this rehearsal, but we saw a lot more when we see the clips of her just having normal conversations with these actors, as actors, not as Adam. And these actors knowing that she was like that, and in many ways deceiving Nathan, because whenever he showed up, they would pretend to be in these characters. But also zero consideration for the kids, which is what we're going to see in that next episode. Definitely Nathan has stronger opinions about comedy than he does about anything else, right? When it comes to sketch comedy and improvising with the kid, he will stand up for his improv abilities, but everything else he will just kind of acquiesce to whoever's the more dominant of the people. So the next episode, episode 6, it is the finale, titled Pretend Daddy. It is going to be the 9th birthday for Adam, so he's 3 years older in the next episode. You see that one of the child actors from the 6-year-old group of actors formed an attachment to Nathan, which, we get to see kind of the unintended victims of this rehearsal. We get to see in the comparison to Charlie and the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, we see how this dream maker is damaging children in the next episode and final episode of season 1. I'm excited to see when season 2 comes out, but Thank you all for checking out this episode of the Rehearsal Recap Podcast. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday, one more Tuesday left, for my analysis of the next episode, the final episode of the Rehearsal. And join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform, or if you're watching this, do so on YouTube. And until then, see you next week for more Rehearsal.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.